Before the Goodbye, Buddhist teaching on non-attachment. I didn't realize I was already saying goodbye while everything was still here. Even in moments of love and ease, part of me was holding back, bracing, preparing, quietly afraid of how much it might hurt to lose. Only later did I see how this way of holding was shaping my life long before anything ended. Holding the edge. You may not notice it at first, but there is a quiet way the mind prepares for loss long before anything is actually leaving. You feel it when joy arrives and something inside you tightens, as if to brace. You feel it when love deepens and a subtle caution appears, reminding you not to lean too far in. The Buddha understood this movement well, the mind reaching forward into the future, rehearsing pain, believing that readiness will soften the blow. So you hold gently but not freely. You stay present but with a guard. Life becomes something you touch carefully, as if it might break. The Buddha did not call this wisdom. He saw it as a form of fear disguised as care. And yet, he never judged it. He simply observed how this habit of grasping quietly drains life of its fullness before anything has even ended. The cost of vigilance. When the mind believes that holding tightly will protect the heart, a certain tension becomes constant. You monitor feelings. You measure how much joy is safe. You ration love so it won't hurt too much later. The Buddha noticed how this vigilance creates mental strain that spreads into the body, into breath, into sleep. Like a hand clenched around water, the tighter the grip, the more slips away. Joy feels fragile. Peace feels temporary. Even moments of beauty carry a shadow, because part of you is already preparing for their disappearance. The Buddha did not advise fixing this habit. He invited seeing it clearly, how protection becomes pressure, and how fear quietly steals what it tries to save. Seeing the movement. What you cling to changes. What you see clearly can be held without fear. The Buddha's insight was simple and unsettling. Everything you love is already in motion. Not as a threat, but as a fact of living. When you watch closely your moods, your relationships, your own body, you can see change happening moment by moment. Nothing is static enough to secure. This seeing is not meant to harden you. It softens something else, the demand that life promised permanence. When this demand relaxes, a different kind of attention becomes possible. You stop waiting for guarantees. You start noticing what is actually here. And in that noticing, the grip loosens without force. Love without bracing. Consider how you sit with someone you care about. The Buddha observed how presence deepens when fear steps aside. When you are no longer scanning the future for loss, you listen differently. You see details, the way a voice changes, the quiet between words. Love becomes vivid because it is no longer postponed. This does not mean pretending goodbye will never come. It means not living in rehearsal for it. The Buddha showed that love does not require ownership. Attention is enough. Care does not depend on control. When you stop bracing, intimacy breathes. When joy isn't delayed. The mind often says, enjoy this later when it's safer. The Buddha recognized this delay as a subtle refusal of life. Waiting for the right conditions, the guaranteed outcome, the secure future, this waiting dulls experience. When impermanence is seen clearly, something surprising happens. Appreciation sharpens. You don't save joy for later, you feel it now. Like sunlight on skin, it doesn't need to last to be real. The Buddha's way was not to deny joy, but to free it from anxiety about duration. Letting go is not leaving. Release is not abandonment. It is intimacy without chains. Many fear that letting go means caring less. The Buddha pointed in the opposite direction. Letting go of ownership allows care to deepen. When you stop demanding that moments stay, you give them permission to be complete. Think of a breath. You don't cling to the inhale. You allow it to pass, and the next arrives. Life moves the same way. When you trust this movement, participation becomes easier. You are here fully without gripping. The shape of pain. Loss still hurts. The Buddha never denied this. But he distinguished between pain that moves and suffering that hardens. When identity is tied to what is lost, pain collapses inward. When identity loosens, pain flows through. You begin to notice that grief has a shape. It rises, peaks, softens. When you don't resist it or dramatize it, it does not define you. The Buddha's insight was not to eliminate pain, but to prevent it from becoming a prison. Shrinking to feel safe. Fear-based attachment often leads to a smaller life. You say no to depth to avoid hurt. You avoid loving fully to avoid breaking. The Buddha observed how this shrinking feels like safety, but actually starves the heart. When release begins, even slightly energy returns. You take risks again. You show up more honestly. Life expands not because danger disappears, but because fear no longer dictates the terms. Memory without clinging. Gratitude remembers without holding. The Buddha noticed how memory can either bind or bless. When you cling to the past, memory tightens into longing. When you release, memory softens into gratitude. The same event, held differently, shapes the present in entirely different ways. You begin to feel thankful without wishing to rewind. What was meaningful remains meaningful, even as it passes. Memory becomes a quiet companion instead of a demand. The nervous system learns. Over time, the body learns something the mind once doubted. Pain can be felt without destruction. The Buddha understood this deeply. By staying present with difficulty without collapsing or escaping, you teach the nervous system resilience. Fear loosens because it no longer imagines catastrophe as the only outcome. Sadness can come and go. Joy can visit freely. Life feels less like a threat and more like a flow. Control is distance. The Buddha saw control not as strength, but as distance. When you manage outcomes or regulate others, connection thins. Without control, listening deepens. Presence replaces pressure. You stop trying to shape people into permanence. You meet them where they are, changing, alive. Relationships become lighter, more honest. Love becomes an offering, not a demand. Nothing taken for granted. When nothing is owned, everything is precious. As attachment dissolves, gratitude sharpens. Ordinary moments regain color because nothing is assumed. The Buddha's way reveals how attention brightens when entitlement fades. A brief meeting can be complete. A short season can be enough. Joy no longer waits for longevity. It arrives fully, precisely because it is not promised. Life is movement. Stability, the Buddha saw, was never something to achieve and keep. Life has always been movement like water, like wind. Growth requires release. When movement is resisted, vitality suffocates. When movement is allowed, life feels alive again. You stop asking experiences to stay. You let them teach, touch, and pass. This is not loss. It is participation. Endings without collapse. Endings still carry sadness, but without attachment, they no longer devastate. Gratitude and grief coexist. Love remains open without being chained. The heart learns that nothing needs to last forever to matter deeply. The Buddha's insight reveals freedom not in avoiding goodbye, but in meeting it without losing yourself. Before the goodbye, freedom comes from seeing, not securing. Letting go before loss happens does not steal meaning from life. It reveals it moment by moment, fully felt, honestly lived. You stop rehearsing endings and start inhabiting presence. This is the Buddha's quiet teaching. Life does not need to be held to be loved. When you see clearly, the heart relaxes. When the heart relaxes, life opens. And in that openness, even goodbye loses its power to close you. This is Buddha Reflections, where philosophy, insight, and lived experience meet to explore mind, impermanence, and release. Thanks for your time. It's been a delight. What should we explore next? Comment, share, and save your insight. Subscribe to Orbital Dharma and keep your thoughts bright.